The progression was I needed some help. So I started Googling online, found Bigger Pockets, jumped onto the forums, realized that I wasn't alone in this journey. That was an epiphany for me because I didn't come from a family on either side of us that appreciated or even really purchased much real estate.
Mm.
And so it was like you can go someplace and find out other people are doing the same thing. And it was so encouraging. So it looked like me diving into getting all the questions answered that I could while taking action. And we started looking quickly at properties because it was that time they were just, you could, you know, shake a tree and find 10 cash flowing properties during that time. And then I got analysis paralysis because there was so much cash flow and so many opportunities. And I was trying to get just the right perfect ones, and
Yeah.
of course, now there's probably 15 of them. I look back and I just roll my eyes that I didn't go for because it didn't have, 2% rule on them or something. And
Yeah.
we just started looking at it. And by that time, I was actually teaching school
Mm.
for a little bit. And I would get up before school started and I would look at MLS, all the latest listings. I was not licensed at that time. So I was working with a realtor. And then I missed out on some properties because they were going so fast, especially foreclosures. I would I would get out of school, go see the properties, and they would be pending. And so I made the decision after a quick stint in teaching to get my real estate license and to take more control over our real estate assets and build a career in something that I'd really stumbled upon that I loved.
Got it. Yeah. So how many properties were you purchasing? Like, what was
Oh
your
yeah,
pace?
thanks. I didn't finish that question. We were
No.
purchasing a couple a year during that
Okay.
time. So we was pretty slow and steady, I would say, consistent. In fact, back in 2014, I was like a very early on guest at Bigger Pockets. And I remember
Mm.
Josh Dorkin, who was the, founder at that time, he interviewed me. And at the beginning of the podcast, I was so proud of it. It was exciting, right? And
Yeah.
the beginning of it, he said, Jonna's story's boring. So, you know what? It worked for us. We did traditional, we lived on half our income. We saved our down payments. We got traditional bank financing and put that money into down payments that we made instead of fancy cars and upgrading our house. That's the long and
Hmm.
short of it.
Yeah.
And it's amazing though. You underestimate the amount of, impact you can make on your life in a year, but you really underestimate what can be done in a decade. And so a couple of years ago, I looked back after a decade and I was just so grateful for those decisions and the delayed gratification that we had during that time. It's made a big
Yes.
difference.
Absolutely. And boring works. Like that,
Right.
the flashy stuff, the get rich quick stuff, it all fizzles out. Like you just see it
Yeah.
over and over again. It works in certain markets and then all of a sudden it doesn't work. And so if you're consistent though and you follow sound principles, then you're gonna be wealthy. Like it's been proven over and over again.
Right.
So you chose to self-manage these properties though.
We
What was
did.
your
Can you believe it? I look at it and I was laughing with my husband yesterday, actually, because I just did a lease approval. I just sent out a lease for signature this morning before I came here, and we're still doing it. And as long as we enjoy it and have good, great local renters, we buy quality properties. There's an aspect to it that we enjoy in a kind of way. And a tie-in with it too is I am a realtor. And so it's been a blessing to be able to also help a lot of our tenants along the way when it comes time to purchase properties. And
mm,
we've got that relationship developed. So it's probably a little nuance that someone that is in a typical W-2 job, doesn't have as a benefit for self-managing. But
yeah.
my husband really enjoys it too. And the key, if you're going to do that, of course, is systems and screening. And then just having a great team of subs and people that can come that are you're loyal to and that are loyal to you. I mean, I couldn't do it without those relationships.
Yeah. 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 And a lot of people say, oh, you got to get a professional property manager, but it's not the case. Like you can absolutely do it yourself. And I think you're right. The key is those good tenants. Well, quality properties and then good tenants. And that makes all the difference in the world. So,
Yeah, that
yeah.
first townhouse I told you about, our tenant has been there since 2008.
Wow.
So we
That's
like to have
amazing.
long-term relationships.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And if people find a great place, they're not going to want to leave. So,
Right.
um, so you mentioned Boise was the foreclosure capital during the downturn, and since then, I mean, Boise has just blown up. It was I was looking, I think it was a couple of years ago, but it was like the number one appreciating market in the
Mhm.
whole U.S. Which, if you would have told me Idaho would be the number one appreciating market several years ago, I'd say you're crazy. It's going to be a coastal area or some like, higher end area or something like that. But it is just appreciated and gone crazy. So I guess what what do you think the impetus is for that? And then what's your outlook on it going forward?
I'm really bullish on Boise. I think the real cause of the inflow, of course, most of our people are inflowing from California, Washington, Oregon, and that's where I know on the East Coast you all have people coming down to Florida and the Carolinas. Here they
Mm-hmm.
come up to Idaho, along with other states, of course. But it's been a huge influx. It's political reasons. It's cost of living. We had a huge surge of people that came up here that were able to work remotely after during COVID and also wanted greater ability to have freedom walking around and all that good stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
so that was just huge. And I don't know, our infrastructure is settling into that right now still. I mean, it was such a huge influx that was really, even for those of us in the industry, it was kind of startling how
Yeah.
fast the people flowed in. And it's led to a strong market. We had a huge run up during COVID, but things are staying stable. And we've got big technology coming into the area and huge growth. Like Micron Technology is here and they're doing a huge expansion right now. We've got Amazon and a bunch of smaller companies that are coming in right now. And the quality of living is a huge attraction. We've got our four seasons, but we don't have like sub-zero Chicago weather
Yeah.
or high desert. We don't get much snow, and we're just a friendly folk, Kirby. We're friendly people, and most people. I think
Absolutely.
I've helped one person that's moved to Idaho in the last 12 years move back out of state. The rest have just absolutely loved it and stayed.
Wow. Interesting. So during that run up then of appreciation, did you sell off some of your rentals or have you held strong?
One commercial property.
Okay.
One commercial property. We did get a little bit into commercial in the last decade, and so it was actually a restaurant space, and so that
Mm,
was a really good thing to sell off. I think it was really challenging after COVID to have a restaurant space,
mm,
but other than that, we did not. There's a couple that I've kind of wondered if I should, but I know I'm in it for the long haul. And as we get a little bit more mature in our investing game, we may sell off some rentals and move it into something a little bit more passive as we
yeah.
go along, as the inventory gets older, because when you have more deferred maintenance, of course, I know if I heard you talk about it, Kirby, like one big thing can kill your cash flow for a year. Whereas if you've got something invested passively, you don't have that to worry about.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that speaks volumes to you being bullish about Boise because I'm sure it is tempting. You sitting on the equity
Mhm.
that you're sitting on
Yeah.
to sell off and cash in, but obviously you still think that
Well,
there's a long term
just being
growth.
down in San Diego recently, where you had mentioned that I saw my childhood home for $4.5 million sold, and meeting the people, just being down there on my own and listening to people and seeing what their homes are selling for. Again, it's all perspective. So I just see a lot more room for people moving to Idaho for quality of life and being fine with the pricing where they are, where it is, or upwards,
Yeah,
So again, but it's got to be a long term play because you can't panic if it softens a little in 6 months.
yeah, yeah. So what is your guys' exit plan? I'm always curious because I think it's smart to think with the end in mind. I've heard people talk about how people who don't plan it out, they spend half their life accumulating assets and then the other half trying to sell off their assets because they didn't really have a plan for what they were going to do
Right.
with all of them. So what do you, I mean, what's the end goal for you guys?
Well, we've been talking a lot about that actually, because one, it's important, but two, there gets to a point when we're sitting on that appreciation, and not
Hmm.
quite as much cash flow as you want. So I definitely know we will be redistributing some assets at some point to create higher cash flow possibilities. We do have some of our rentals paid off, and we also have some on 15 terms. And I know a lot of people disagree, with that mindset, but that's something that we get excited about, having more active cash flow coming from our rentals. And yes, I do think we will eventually have a property manager,
Yeah.
whether that's in-house, which I've done that. I've had assistants in-house that help us with property management, or whether we go out of house, that's to be determined. But we have more and more travel on our docket. So that's really important to us. But leaving a
Got it.
legacy, everyone says that, but our kids are young adults and we want to continue to model for them and have things that keep growing in perpetuity in some respect.
Yeah. Yeah. Got it. That makes sense. Yeah. And I think that's the lens that a lot of people look at it through. But it's just staying consistent with it to get to that point, which obviously you've done over time. So, when was it for you? I'm curious that you started the Boise Real Estate Investors Network.
Oh,
And what is
yeah.
that? I guess what's the impact that's had on your investing?
Oh, it's been so good. I actually started doing meetups here in the Boise area back in 2014.
Oh, wow.
And just again, needing to meet other people that were doing what I was doing and learning alongside them. And then I started a Facebook group. It's called Idaho Real Estate Investors, 2017. So it's been an iteration. And then in 2023, I decided to go ahead and create it as a full blown membership network and really marry those experienced investors with those newer investors that really need the mentorship and the hand holding and to learn more about, what to do to create some passive income for themselves, which I know you're all about too. So it's so awesome.
Yeah.
And, and we have experienced, I guess I should say for me personally, what I've experienced the most, not only just new relationships and friendships, but also myself being exposed to so many other different ways to obtain rentals and
Mm,
to have success in today's market that I wasn't even thinking about. Like if I would have known some of the creative financing options that are, around today and different ways of going about and partnering with other people, I'd probably have 10 times the properties today.
yeah.
So it's just been a big mind expansion for me, which I didn't even intend. I created this to serve other people, but I've learned so much personally. It's been awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes so much sense. And for people who haven't been a part of RIAs, because I've gone to a lot of RIA meetings over the years. I actually had a couple partners early on who started a RIA meeting in Chicago back in
Nice.
2011 or so. Yeah, so we kind of helped run that for several years, and same thing. I got so much out of it personally. But for people who are listening to this who haven't been a part of RIAs, like how do you recommend people leverage local real estate meetups to be successful? Because I know
Yeah.
there's different ways of doing it or different ways of showing up, and some people probably don't get the same impact that others do. So, what are your
Yeah.
sort of tips for people?
It's really simple. I would say just show up and be curious
Mm,
and focus on those that you're talking to and learn from them. I've had a lot of experience with people that come once to something, especially if they're plugging a business or a deal. And
hmm.
they show up once and they like, I'm not going to join. I didn't get any business from it. And they come to one meeting, right? It's a relationship. It's all about creating know, like, and trust with other people in your immediate area and gaining market knowledge. So I know sometimes there's a lot of nerves when someone walks into the room for the first time and they don't know, who they are, or they're intimidated because they assume everyone in the room has 100 rentals,
Yeah.
right? And I just encourage them to just show up, be themselves, and just ask questions of other people, be curious. Other investors love to talk about themselves and
Hmm.
they love to share. I mean, I cannot tell you the amount of generosity in our rooms with people that are very experienced, that are just right there, open book and willing to share what they know. And something that may be unique about our Boise Real Estate Investor Network is our meetings are mainly led by local investors, some of the best investors in the state of Idaho that are just giving of their time and sharing specifically. And so it's not typically someone coming in, selling a seminar. It's very organic, and it's investor to investor, neighbor to neighbor, learning from one another. It's pretty fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, that makes a big difference. And do people who are not local, can they join too? I mean, is it
Absolutely.
virtual?
Yeah.
Are the meetings virtual?
Yes. And we're adding more virtual components. We're actually going to be morphing from the Boise Real Estate Investor Network to the Idaho Real Estate Investor Network, because I've been making so many connections with others from other cities in the state. And that's been really, really fun. But yeah, we have some virtual components, and it's all about deal sharing and mind sharing and knowledge sharing. And we actually have a lot of people that join in, especially on that Facebook page, from all different states and even countries that join in. We've got one investor that has rentals in Boise, but he lives in Japan and he's involved. So
Wow.
there's definitely opportunity for those that are just looking at the market too and want to know more about why Idaho.
Yeah, absolutely. And is it still possible to buy rental properties? I mean, cash flowing rental properties, or
It is, there's cash flowing. That's another situation, right?
yeah.
It really depends. We have a lot of people that have been super creative with seller financing, and we're taking advantage of some assumable loans and capturing some low interest rates. There's also people doing some really creative things like huge buy downs so that they get down to that interest rates in the fours, let's say,
Yeah.
and are able to create something where it's livable. And a lot of us are very conservative. If it's paying the mortgage, we're good. If we're buying, and I would say for anyone that's not licensed, utilize, whether it's my team or somebody else, utilize realtors that truly have your best interest at heart and are leading you to areas that are growing and are highly, highly desirable for rentals. Because with our run up, we've had a lot of institutional investors, and there's a lot of rentals on the market right now, transparently. And so it's really important to get that rental that really shines.